The story tonight is called Mr. Meddle and the Conjurer. Do you know what a conjurer is?
No.
A conjurer is somebody who does magic, makes things disappear or appear. That's typically or maybe who knows what's inside a box that he's never looked in. That's a conjurer. He's got a magic wand and he waves it and does the magic. Makes lions disappear or whatever, Basically a conjurer is a magician. Did you ever hear how Mr. Meddle meddled with a conjurer one day? You didn't? Well, I'll tell you. Now, you know that at some parties there is a conjurer who does all kinds of marvellous magic things. Well, once Meddle was invited to one of these parties, and he went dressed up in his best suit, feeling all excited. There was a lovely tea, and afterwards there was to be a conjurer doing magic tricks. Meddle didn't say a word all through his tea because he was wondering how the conjurer would do his magic. He guessed it must be because of his magic wand. Please get on playing Nuts in May while I get the room ready for the conjurer, said Mrs. Twinkle, who was giving the party. So everyone went into the next room, and soon they were singing, "Here we come gathering nuts in May, nuts in May, nuts in May. Here we come gathering nuts in May, all on a summer's day." But Mr. Meddle wasn't. No, he had slipped into the tiny room where he had seen the conjurer put his coat and hat and bag just to see if he could find anything interesting. Naughty Mr. Meddle. The bag was open. What do you think's going to happen? Do you think he's going to look inside?
Yes.
Is that allowed?
No.
You're not allowed to look in the conjurer's bag, are you? In fact, not allowed to look in anybody's bag. The bag was open. Some of the things were unpacked. The conjurer was not there. He was helping Mrs. Twinkle to arrange the chairs. So Mr. Meddle had the little room to himself. He looked for the magic wand. It was in the bag. Meddle carefully took out the magic wand and looked at it. It was a thin silver wand, and it felt strangely heavy in his hands. Meddle was suddenly full of excitement. He would use the wand and see if he could make it do some magic for him. So he waved it in the air, and he wished, "I wish for a sack of gold." There was a thud beside him, and a great brown sack appeared, tied up at the neck. Meddle trembled with joy. Ooh! The wand was really magic. Look at this enormous sack. I must hide it outside where no one will see it, said Meddle. So he dragged it outside and hid it behind a wall. Then he crept into the little room and picked up the silver wand again. What shall I do with it this time? He wondered. He looked down at his shoes and saw that they were very muddy from going out into the garden. That would never do. So Mr. Meddle waved his wand and wished once more. I wish for a beautiful pair of shoes. Something flew off his feet, and his old shoes were gone. something clapped themselves on his feet. And bless us all, there was Meddle wearing the most beautiful pair of real gold shoes, shining and glittering like the sun. Gracious, said Meddle, I am getting on. I'll wish for something else now. Before the conjurer comes back, I can hear him talking to Mrs. Twinkle. I wish for my larder at home to be filled with all sorts of things to eat. Treacle puddings, jam rolls, chocolate cakes, ice creams, and anything else that's nice, he wished. Then he heard the conjurer coming, and he slipped out of the room and ran to where the others were still playing Nuts in May. Now, when the conjurer was standing in front of everyone later on, looking at all the guests sitting in their chairs, he picked up his magic wand to do some magic. And as soon as he picked it up and waved it, he knew somebody had been meddling with it. Who'd been meddling with it?
Meadow.
Yes. How did he know? Oh, quite easily. You see, when a wand is full of magic, it is very heavy. But it gets lighter as it is used. And now Meddle had used it 3 times, so that it was now very light indeed. Do you know what light means?
No.
Not heavy. Something's heavy. The opposite of heavy is, if it's heavy, you can't pick it up. If it's light, you can pick it up like a feather. A feather's light. A brick is heavy.
A tree is heavy.
A tree is heavy. Think of something which is light.
A sock.
Yes, a sock is quite light. You can lift up easily. The conjurer looked in astonishment at his wand. Then he glared at all the people in front of him. Do you know what it means when he glared?
No.
Like this, he's looking at them very fierce. Trying to see who'd used his magic wand. He glared at them. Someone, he said, someone has been using my wand. Was it you?
No.
The goodness is gone out of it. Who has done this? Nobody answered. Meddle was dreadfully frightened. He hadn't guessed that the conjurer would find out. How he wished he hadn't meddled with the magic wand now. I say again, said the conjurer in a very angry voice, who has used my wand? I still give them this one chance, and I warn them that if they do not come forward and tell me, they will be punished, and will be very sorry indeed. What do you think he's going to do? Do you think he's going to confess?
Yeah.
Do you think Meddle will say it was me? Or do you think he's going to stay quiet?
Quiet.
What do you think he'll do? What would you do?
I don't know.
What do you think Meddle's going to do?
I don't know.
Let's see. Meddle sat quite still in his chair. He wasn't going to own up. Not he. How could the conjurer punish him if he didn't know who it was that had used the wand? How could he? How could the conjurer punish him? Because he doesn't know who used the wand, does he? But let's see what happens. Very well, said the conjurer. I will say no more, but the one who has used my magic will be very sorry before the night has gone. The party went on. Mr. Meddle didn't enjoy it a bit because he knew he should not have touched the wand, and he knew that he should certainly have owned up when the conjurer had spoken about it. All the same, he was delighted to think that he had a sack of gold, golden shoes on his feet, and a cupboard full of the most delicious food at home. When the time came to say goodbye, Meddle slipped away first, dragging with him on his shoulder an enormous sack. He went down the darkest lanes so that he would not meet anyone. The sack was terribly heavy, as it should be if it's full of gold, because gold is heavy. He had to keep putting it down and resting. Really, he had never known such a heavy sack in all his life. He would be rich with all that gold. Suddenly his feet began to hurt him. His golden shoes were heavy and tight, and they began to press on his toes and heels in a very painful manner. "I'll take them off and put them in my pocket," thought Mr. Meddle. "Then they won't hurt me. I can easily walk in my socks." But he couldn't get the golden shoes off. They just simply would not come off. He tried and tried, but it was of no use at all. So there was nothing for it but to go on wearing them. The poor Mr. Meddle groaned and grunted at every step. At last he got home. He dragged the sack into the kitchen and lighted his lamp. He took a knife and cut the string that bound up the neck of the sack. He put his hand in to get out the gold, but oh, what a dreadful disappointment. The sack was full of nothing but big stones.
Huh?
No gold, just stones. The magic had gone out of it, and the gold had turned to nasty, heavy stones. Poor Mr. Meddle. He had dragged the stones all the way home. He sat down to take off his shoes, which were hurting more than ever before. But no, it was impossible to take them off. Meddle began to feel frightened. The gold had turned to stones, and the shoes wouldn't come off. He didn't like that at all. "Never mind, perhaps I'll find all those delicious things in my cupboard that I wished for," he thought. "I'm hungry now, I'll have a few." He went to the cupboard, opened it, half afraid that he wouldn't find anything, but on the shelves were the treacle puddings and chocolate cakes and jam rolls and many other things he had wished for. Good! What's going to go wrong?
I don't know.
I don't know, let's see. He took down an ice cream and fetched a spoon. He put a spoonful into his mouth. But gracious me, he spat it out again as soon as at once. It burnt his tongue. Yes, it really did. Meddle stared at the ice cream as if he couldn't believe his eyes. How could ice cream burn? He must have been mistaken. He tried again, but this time the ice cream burnt his tongue so much that he screamed in pain and ran to get some cold water. Then he tried the treacle pudding, but the treacle tasted like salt and was horrible. He bit a chocolate biscuit, couldn't swallow it. He licked the jam off a tart, but it was made of pepper and made him sneeze and choke until tears came into his eyes. "Oh, it's too bad, said Meddle in despair. "All that magic has gone wrong. Why didn't I own up when I had the chance? Here I've tired myself out dragging a heavy stack of homes all the way to the house, and my feet are almost crippled with all those dreadfully tight shoes, and now I've burnt my tongue and tasted all sorts of horrible things that look as nice as can be." He decided to go to bed, but still he couldn't get his shoes off. And they seemed to be growing tighter and tighter. It was dreadful. At last, in despair, Mr. Meddle went out into the dark night with his lantern to go back to Mr. Twinkle's and ask if the conjurer was still there. He really must get those shoes off his feet. He would have to confess and say he was sorry. He really was sorry now. It was a dreadful thing to meddle with someone else's magic. The conjurer wasn't staying at Mrs. Twinkle's, but he didn't seem a bit surprised to see the trembling Meddle. He stared at him. No, the conjurer was staying the night at Mrs. Twinkle's. He didn't seem a bit surprised to see the trembling Meddle. He stared at him without a smile. "I was expecting you," he said sternly. "Meddlers are always punished." "Please, please forgive me," begged Meddle. "My sack of gold turned into stones, my larder of good things cannot be eaten, and my feet are so tired of these shoes." "You must wear them for 3 days," said the conjurer, looking at them. "I cannot take them off, for the magic is too strong. As for the things in your larder, throw them away, for they will be of no use to anyone." Poor Meddle. He limped home. You know what limping means?
No.
When you walk with a limp, like because your feet hurt, like this. That's a limp. I'm walking with a limp.
Can I do it?
Yes.
Is that?
You keep one leg straight and walk with the other one. Okay, off you get back in bed. Until the rest. Get back in bed until the rest.
What can I see?
You look at the picture, he's tasting the food, but it tastes of mustard or pepper. It doesn't taste too much salt. It doesn't taste nice at all. And now he's got to wear those shoes for 3 days. Poor Meddle. He limped home crying. He threw away all those lovely things in the larder, and he emptied his sack of stones at the bottom of the garden. Then he went to bed with the golden shoes on. And for 3 days he had to wear them. Then they became looser, and he took them off and threw them down the well. Horrible things! He wasn't going to keep them. "That's taught me to never meddle again," said Mr. Meddle solemnly. "Never, never, never." And he didn't meddle with anything for a whole month. But after that, well, I'm afraid he forgot, and that's going to be the next story. That was the story of Mr. Meddle, meddling where he shouldn't, and looking in the conjurer's bag where he shouldn't have looked. And now it's time for